Alright, hello YouTube modeling community. This is Rusty Rotor. As promised, here's this little video on how I use these little disposable eyeliner brushes. I've got it zoomed in, so that looks like a lot of paint on the brush, but it's not. So we're going to get in here and show you how I do the details. This is a new angle for me. Like I said before, the best thing about these little Vallejo paints is they're water-based. So if you make a mistake, you can always go back over it. Now with it zoomed in this far, you can kind of see, there's a little spot here and there missed. But it's zoomed in, so by the naked eye, you're not going to see that. I just take my time. I don't have the steadiest of hands, but these little brushes help a great deal. You can spend, $20, $30 on an expensive artist brush, and I do have them, but I find that these actually do a better job than those do. So, just as anything else, fill in all the space. And I just tip the brush into the paint. I don't swab it around or anything like that. I shake the paint really good, or as best as I can before I start. And I try not to put it on too heavy, because you can always come back and add, a little more. So, there's one little gauge. And most of the time, I do them in black. Let's see if we get it at an angle and get it to focus. There we go. I do them in black, and I let them dry. And these kind of dry flat, or at least a matte finish, some of them. Then, after it's dry, you can go in and pick out the detail with a toothpick, or, like I suggested before, the little hairs off of here. It is tedious work, but, if you want to add that little touch of realism, it's a perfect solution to the problem. Instead of trying to get in there and paint it, you can just, take the bristles and, cut them. You're not worried about length right out of the gate. It's just, you're going to pull the bristles apart, put a couple drops of paint. I would use like an enamel for that, and then some cheap lacquer thinner, and stir it up and make it almost like a wash, and then put the bristles down there and let them soak. And then, like I said, after they got the color that you're looking for on them, then I'd pull them out and kind of separate them with a pair of tweezers or a toothpick and let them dry. And then get you a little container, kind of like these. You can get these at Hobby Lobby. You get like 18 of them in a little plastic container box. And they're easy to put a label on, right across here. You can put a label, what they are. And then you just use your tweezers and take one out. And, good pair of glasses if you don't have good eyes, or, jeweler's glasses. And then kind of guesstimate the length of the needle on the gauge. And once you got that, then kind of take your tweezers and just kind of hold it in place and see if it's the right length. If it is, great. Kind of set it to the side where you know where it's at. Just get a little dab of the high gloss. It really doesn't matter at this point, I guess. Matte finish, it doesn't matter. But the Mod Podge. And just put a tiny little dab. It doesn't take a lot. Just a teeny tiny bit. And then use your tweezers and place the needle where you want it. And then let that set for a few minutes. Let that get kind of set up. And then you can kind of go in and take a toothpick, or even one of these little brushes, just the tip, a new one, in some white or silver, whichever you prefer to use, and try to pick out the little numbers and, whatever's on that gauge. You can kind of pick them out. Just, take your time. You can kind of see them in there now as this paint's drying. see a little spot I missed, so I'll hit that. There we go. And then, hit this, and that looks, that'll bring out the detail that's in that gauge. And I mean, you can do it for each little gauge, knob, whatever. I mean, these little brushes, like that. And you're just tapping it. You're not trying to paint. The one thing with painting, when you're using brushes, is all your strokes should be one direction. Always. So if I was to hand paint this dashboard, I would start, left to right and pull my paint all one direction. That decreases the amount of brush marks you'll see in your finished job. And my first coat is always kind of just like airbrushing. It's, instead of a mist coat, it's a light coat. I let that dry to get tacky, or if I'm using these, enamels or acrylics, I kind of let them, flash out before I try to put the second coat on, because it's like, especially with the enamels, if you put it on and then try to put it on again, the enamel soaks through and it'll pull the paint back away from the plastic. Same prep work. You should always, I use like a 1200, 1500, and kind of just, scuff the surface a little bit. It gives the paint something to adhere to. In this case, I didn't primer it. I usually always use a real light gray primer, or a white primer, something that's real fine so it doesn't cover up the detail before I do paint. But just for this purpose, it's just giving you an idea of how I do it. And we'll paint another little detail here real quick. And we'll do this little vent over here. Like I said, I just get in there, get a little paint so I can pull it away. And even in this case, I'll pull left to right just to get coverage. And then I can always come back and hit those little corners. And hit the little spots that I've missed. This is really hard to do, guys, because my camera is actually in my folding light to hold it. I got to get some kind of a rig to hold my camera while I do these kind of things. But hopefully you get an idea. And I enjoy this stuff because this is tedious. It's challenging. It's, and then at the end it's rewarding. So for all your hard work and your determination, you get a decent little product. So there you go. There's a little vent that's painted. As far as, accuracy, I don't think a Chevelle Dash ever had the wood grain. I can't remember. There's so many different options in a car. But I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of, these little brushes, how well they'll get in here. And you can see how clean of a line you can do. And even if you veer off course, while it's wet, you can take a little pointed Q-tip like I showed you on Monday's video and kind of clean your edge back up, and then take a toothpick and scrape and get that nice clean edge, prior to that. This would kind of be the last step you'd do anyways. The whole dash would already be painted. And, the layers of paint, depending on the colors you use, lighter colors, you're going to see that little tiny detail a lot better because it'll pop out. Black always works real well. It is a dark color, but it lets you see that detail a little better. You get into more of the custom colors, especially like if you're a lowrider guy and you've got all these stripes, masked off and painted, and you're adding that foam with the your diamond tuft or rolled and pleated patterns. A lot of those guys make their own dashes and then they just add the foam. It's all for looks. It's not functionality or being a purist to the car. It's all about the flash. And I'm going to try one of those one day, because I absolutely, the artist in me comes out when I see those cars and those paint jobs and those interiors, and I'm just, I'm wowed by them. I've never attempted them. I've some of the techniques I've used, but like I said in my very first video, I'm an old school hot rod guy. I love the resto mods, pro stock, pro street, and now the big thing is pro touring, which is kind of the complete opposite of being a purist, because pro touring is the only thing that's pure about the car, and it's not very often, is the body, the car itself. Even in most of those pro touring cars are so heavily modified. The bodies, the fenders, quarter panels, they've all been stretched out. The car's been tubbed out. It doesn't even have the original suspension underneath it or frame anymore. They're all tubular. Those cars drive and ride like they're a Ferrari. So with the raw horsepower of American muscle in it underneath the hood, and I think that's why I like it, because I do like JDM cars. I've built some over the years, just a handful, nothing major, and I'll eventually show those. They're no beauty queens. They're just kits I built. But I do have a stash of them, and I add to it as I can. And I intend to do a segment on them one day. But for now, that's kind of how I do it. And you can even get in here. Well, let me get a different one. Use it as a pointer, so you can kind of see right out of the tube. Let me get it to focus. And remember, this is magnified 2 times and zoomed in, so that is probably, if I was going to break it down into millimeters, and I'm not a math guy or knowing this, that, and the other, but if I laid my fingernail down, which, pardon the nasty nails, but I've always had the bad habit my whole life of chewing my nails in the cuticles, which is gross. I don't recommend doing it, but my nails my whole life have always been super soft, and they break off super easy, and they peel back, so it's just kind of a nervous habit, I guess. But if I lay that on, that shows you how far away I am. This is actually smaller than, I think, a 0.01 or 0.000 artist's brush. This is actually finer than that. You see those girls running around with those super, super, super tiny, thin little black lines or whatever color makeup they use on their eyes. These are what they're using. So it's if you got a steady hand, it could be used for painting stripes. That's how tiny the brush is. Some of you may use these already, and kudos to you if you do. If you're not, I highly suggest get on Amazon. Even a person like me and anybody else that's out there that's on a budget, these are affordable, and you're getting 100 of them for $6 or $7. If you got Prime, you're getting free shipping, so you just wait a couple days and you get them. 100 of them last me about 2 years, 2.5 years, maybe. And I do waste a lot of them. I don't, don't want to clean it or go through the hassle of that. I'll just use it and throw it away. But they are multiple use. You just got to be careful if you're using lacquer paints. Don't get the thinner up inside there, because there's a little dab of glue holding those bristles in, and that thinner eats it away, and then the bristles fall out. If you do use these to make your little gauge needles, or any other little detail, believe it or not, you can cut them down and paint them silver and lay them, if you're really good, I could lay them down over top of these vent edges and make that detail more three-dimensional. It's all in your capabilities. What is your strong suits? But like I always say, you'll never know unless you try. So it's always good to have a little spare dash, or what I guess what I'm getting at is, so when I do a build, I'm not one of these guys that buy 2 or 3, 4 kits to have all these extra parts in case I make a mistake. So even though this is a Chevelle dash, and I think to myself, well, I really want to try what Rusty Rotor was talking about, instead of doing it on the actual dash and trying to get that first time perfection finished job, because it doesn't happen often, get you some spare parts that you don't care about. And these are water based, so I can always put this in a thing of Dawn dish soap and some hot water and a toothbrush and scrub all that off there and start over. So if I need a dash, I still have my part, and then I can repaint it for what I'm doing with that kit. But get something and practice your little techniques on that before you apply it to the actual, the showpiece. Or, to me, they're all showpieces. It doesn't matter if they're good, they're bad, it turned out horrible. It's a showpiece. It's something you put your, really your blood, sweat, and tears into. So, it's yours. It doesn't have to be shown. It doesn't have to be put on a table to be judged. It's yours. And first and foremost, that's how you should be building, for you. You, and nobody else. I know there's guys out there that say that. I think HPI guy says it all the time. It's your model. You're building it for you and nobody else. It's nice to challenge yourself, and these little techniques that me and dozens of other guys show you, and apply it to your models. But don't do it on your actual build until you've perfected that technique. And then again, there's no such thing as perfection. It's what you're happy with and what you think looks good. If I've learned nothing else in life, that it doesn't matter how hard you try. You can have the best paint, you can have the best interior, the best engine. You've seen all the detail I do, and it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if you're going to compete and try to maintain that level, A, you're going to burn yourself out. B, somebody will still beat you. It doesn't mean that you're a loser. It doesn't mean that your model was a piece of crap. It's not worthy. I've seen it many times. I've seen guys' cars that were subpar, and that's okay, beat out a car that to me, in my eyes, looked perfect. It's all in the eyes of the judge. The judges that are judging, the method of judging, all that plays part, and favoritism. People get mad at me when I say that. If you go to a show and it's a club-sponsored show, it's club judging. And guess who they're going to pick? That's just the way it is. You go to a big show like, Acme, the NNL, North, East, West, South, however many of them there are. I've never been to one, but I am going to the Acme show. I've not made up my mind if I am going to bring some of my work. I don't like traveling with my work that far. That's about 8.5 hours away from me. So the most I've ever traveled with one is almost 2 hours for a show. And I did good in that show, so, And then the ones I thought that would win did not. So, just keep that in mind. You're taking it, and think of it as you're just taking it to show the world. Don't worry about the other guys' models that are sitting on the table, because I've seen the underdog win. I've seen, the elite win. It's all on that day and who's judging and everything else. So go to the events. Look at all those builds. Take it in as you're getting reference while you're there. You're not competing with them. You are in a way. Your model's out on the show or the table, and people are looking at it and they're judging it. But you may very possibly be inspiring somebody else, somebody that didn't compete that day, somebody that's just there looking. It's a great way to meet guys like us that are on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, however they, what platform they use. It's a good way to meet those guys. Sit down and talk to them. I've never been to one, and whether they're YouTube famous or Instagram famous, whatever it is, that wouldn't take, the 5-10 minutes out of the day to sit down and talk to me about something. So always keep that in mind. And it's a good way to get, merchandise, parts like this, a whole kit that you've been looking for, or just a specific part. Chances are you may find it there, and meet great people. And that's the whole thing about this hobby, is the camaraderie of everybody in it. The YouTube community, they're excellent for that, and this is why they do it. They love the hobby so much that they want to tell the world, and they pick their choice and method of how they do it, and this is mine. So I hope this helped for the gentleman that asked me about it, and anybody else. It's well worth it. It's patience, perseverance, and practice. But you need something to practice on. Don't practice on that $30 kit you bought and you want to try to get it in one shot, because it doesn't happen. It does take practice using something that's tedious and tiny, and working with something, I picked this dash because it's this is probably an original release of the 1970 Chevelle. The casting is not good. You can see this close up. You can see some of the flaws in the mold. It's because these are mass produced. And the guys, it's just like any place else. They work there. They're slamming this crap together. It's Friday afternoon. They want to get out of there. It's probably 140 degrees in the factory. And, this stuff's injected molding. And I've worked in those kind of plants, so I know how everybody feels when they're at work, whether it's a mall or not. It's not like me or you that would say, oh, I would take my time. And I would, it's like anything else. They start off good, and then it's a job to them. It's not a hobby like us. The guys that created the mold, those are artists, because they sculpted that out of metal. Originally it's probably sculpted in clay, and then they made a mold of it, and then that mold was turned into an actual mold. And then those molds were out. They slammed together, and then plastics injected into it or extruded into it. And then they'll go through a cooling process, and then those molds pop open and these parts pop out, and then they're grabbing them, they're slamming them, they're throwing them down line, and then they gather them all up, and then somebody takes their time and packages it all in that little $30 box you buy. So just keep in mind, find something to practice on, and when you're happy with your finished results, do it again. If you can duplicate it again and you're happy with it, to me, you've perfected it. So now you're ready to move on to your actual dash of your $30 model kit, or however much you paid for it. But that's just my little tip. I'm happy. I hope you're happy with this. If you like this kind of stuff, drop it down in the comments. Give me a subscription. Doesn't cost you nothing. It helps me to help you. I'm not making any money off this. I hope to one day, just so I can keep this all going, and do more. We got about a minute left, so again, just take your time and work with it. Use a water-based paint. Those little 99-cent craft paints are great for this. Before you try to put a lacquer down in there, or take the time and cut a little mask, some tape, and put in there to cover it up, and then airbrush this. There's guys that do that. Practice drilling out the knobs and using other components to put in there to add that more realism. That we can do all that down later down the road. If people are interested in that, let me know down in the comments. But if you like this, give it a thumbs up. Drop me a comment. Send me an email. Let me know if you don't like leaving comments on there. That's fine. We can talk via email. get to know each other, man, I'll send you my phone number and we can talk on the phone. I have no issues with that. I'm not gonna throw my phone number out here for everybody in the world to pick up the phone and start, hounding me, but I have no problem talking, even another way of, Skyping or whatever. I don't have Skype, but I can do it on Facebook and I can do it on Instagram. I showed you my face, you know what I look like. And when I'm at a show, don't hesitate to come up and talk to me. I'd be glad to talk to anybody. Bring your kids to shows. Get them interested in it. They don't have to build a model car. Let them choose. When I was 7 years old, my dad built ships in bottles. And anybody seen how that's done? It's so tedious. And I used to sit in there and watch him. And one day I finally asked him, I said, Dad, can I help you? I'd like to try to do that. And he grabbed his car keys and he grabbed my hand and said, come on. And he took me to a hobby store. And he said, you can pick out, any model you want right here on this shelf. These are more related to kids. Pick one out. And I did. And I took it home and, I slapped 10 pounds of glue and paint on it. And it was fun. I was proud of it. And, and then I started getting them for presents for my birthday, Christmas, so on and so forth. And then I eventually joined a little club, and that got me more into it. And it was an after-school club. And then I just fell in love with it. And when I found cars and trucks, I was hooked. There's no getting away from it. So that's kind of my little story. But again, if you see me at a show, don't hesitate to come up and talk to me. You see me out in public, come up and talk to me. I always love talking to models. Makes my wife mad. So, other than that, leave it down in the comments. Drop me an email. If you like this, like I said, let me know. I'll do some more. This is a little sloppy, but this is the basis. This can all be cleaned up. Another coat added. If I was going to use this dash, I could make this damn near perfect for what I'm going for. And nowadays you get decals and kits that you can just put the decal in there and you don't have to go through all this tiddly stuff. But going through that and adding that detail yourself, it's more rewarding than just cutting out a decal and slapping it in the gauge face and calling it a day. And it looks better. Decals are okay, but try it. You're never going to learn unless you try. So that's my little tip. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed it. This is Rusty Rotor. I'll probably let this video out before I do the old builds, which I've already told you is going to be the Budweiser thing that I built for my brother-in-law. That will come out on Wednesday. I will probably drop this Wednesday also. So, hope you like it. Talk to you guys later. Bye.